The next step I am going to do is sort out this rear panel, and as we can see, the previous owners done a max power job and has smoothed all the back end, so all these have all been dented in and filler's been put over, so I've now got the job of getting all this off, filling it and making it all smooth. So the first step is to sand all this. I'm using a 180 grit just to get it all flat. Once it's all flat, I will then put filler on these because I know this needs filler, and then I will put a quick guide coat over, block sand that, and then we'll see if there's any other low points that need filling. Right, that's all that sanded off. Just use a DA quickly to get it all off. The primer that's on this car, this yellow, is what was originally on the car, whoever's done some previous work to it. But what they haven't done, there's a few areas I've noticed, is giving the paint any key up to put new stuff on. For instance, when I took this was originally filled in with filler. When I knocked it out from the back, all this under here, under the filler, was still the gloss lacquered paint. So anything that's got this yellow on is coming straight off, so I know what's going on when I put the paint on and primer on, because the last thing I want to do is do all this work and have problems with the paint sticking, because that's the main important part, is as long as you've got something for the paint to stick to. So the guide coat's on here now. All this is literally just a splattering of paint, so when I use the block sander, it's going to highlight any areas which are low. We've already got some areas we know these bits, other sections there, these again, these are all low bits, a little bit of dent there needs doing, and so on, a few little bits. So I'll get this block sanded down and then stick some filler on. So that's all the filler on now. Doesn't look too pretty, and that started to harden a bit too quick before it's gone on, but about 80% of this is going to come back off anyway, just to leave a nice flat surface. The filler I'm using is U-Pole, fantastic, which is really nice stuff to work with. So once it's all dry, I'll block sand it down, guide coat again, block sand it again, and then as long as it's nice and flat, it will just be wiped down and some primer on. And then these edges in there, these are also smooth as well, fillered in, and obviously from the factory they're not meant to be, so probably before I put the filler on I'll just chip this out just to make it an even nice line in there. As you can see under there, it's all fillered in still, so I'll just smooth those out, make sure they're nice and even as they would have been from the factory, and then coat that. This is one example of what I said, where the primer had been put on the car and it wasn't keyed underneath. See, it's just chipping off. And that there, the obviously dark colour, is the original paintwork, so it hasn't been sanded properly. That's why I want all this primer off, so I know what my primer's going on to. Right, I've gone ahead and flat sanded all this, so that top level's all smooth, nice and flat. I've also gone ahead and done the same to the bottom. That's just use a DA with a 180 grit on it. Chipped all the rest off loose. I've cleaned up all the gaps down here, so what I'm going to do now is just squirt the inside of them with some wax, let that tack off, and then stick some primer on the back end of it, and then we should be done. And there we have, that is all in primer. The primer I'm using is just a U-Pole etch primer. The car will have epoxy primer on it, So this is just a quick sort of primer, because where I've sanded down it has gone to bare metal, so it's just to keep any moisture and any rust from forming on the bare metal until it gets its proper primer.